So hello, welcome back. We are in the fifth part of our gospel series, or whatever you want to call it. So I hope everyone is doing well. This one should be short today. It's going to be on the idea that the soul that sins shall die. And simply, my suggestion to you, as again, these are suggestions on, discipling your kids and having family worship time. For this case, when we're talking about the punishment of sin, is to go back again. I think we've already covered this scripture several times, but Genesis 2:15 through 17, 15, 16, and 17. I'm going to read it real quick. Yahweh God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden and to work it and to take care of it. And Yahweh God commanded the man, "You are free to eat from the tree of the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die." Now, he's not going to certainly die because there's something special or terrible about the fruit itself, but it's that act of disobedience, and for that act, the consequence is death. And so as we explain this to our children and our families, again, we need to go back to the first ideas that God is holy and he's just, and his ways are so much higher than our ways and so set apart from our ways, and his standards are so much higher than our standards. And that clearly we see that the punishment for sin is death, and anything less than that is mercy, which is what we'll get to on the next week, where we're going to talk about propitiation. So this idea that somehow God is okay with our sin, or just kind of winks at our sin and just pats us on the head and says that, hey, that's fine. That's not the God of the Bible. He hates sin so much that the consequence of sin is death. All consequence of all sin is death. And again, like we talked about last week, the standard is perfection, and so that poses a problem for all of us, and which will come to the solution to the problem, which is Christ, which is God himself. So let's visit Genesis 2:15 and 17. Talk about that and go through some parts of the Bible with your family, especially the flood story. Go through the flood story and see how God killed everybody, everyone on planet Earth, dead, except for Moses. And it's because of God's plan. And that's why it wasn't because there was anything special in and of Moses himself. And God set him apart and allowed him to have a heart after God, but Moses was still, I said Moses. I kept saying, did I say Moses? Noah. Everywhere where I just said Moses, insert Noah. Gosh, Noah. So anyhow, Noah was still sinful. So we see it that he gets off the boat, plants a garden and a vineyard, and gets drunk, sloppy drunk. So anyhow, maybe you don't have to go over that with your kids, but this idea of the consequences of sin, with God's standard so much higher than ours. And remember the good person test. So now we can again point that back at ourselves and realize that we've broken the commandments. We lie, cheat, steal, disobey, blaspheme God, covet, all that. And Jesus said, if you hate your brother, you're a murderer. So that should get us to the point we're getting all this information about who God is, His standards, how holy He is, how sinful we are, and the consequences of our sin, right? And this brings us to the climax of the gospel, which is Jesus. And so next week we're going to look at that and see who Jesus is and what He has done for us, and ultimately know that it's not technically just about our salvation. It's about God. This is all about God and Him revealing Himself to His people. So I don't think I've said this before, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to call me, or I'm sure the same goes with the elders. They're more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Probably more qualified, definitely more qualified than I am. And remember, I want to reiterate this every time, that it is your job. It is your responsibility, your God-given responsibility, to raise your children, to teach your children in all aspects of life, but especially this one. This is the most important. I'd rather my children not have a high school diploma and know the God of heaven and know the gospel and be able to articulate the gospel than for them not to be able to articulate the gospel and have 1,000 college degrees and have more money than they know what to do with. Because one of those things is going to see them through. The gospel of Christ is where eternal life is. Those other things are going to perish with this world. So remember that. This is getting a little off course. I think what happens is we get so caught up into the things of this world and money and houses and our future in this world that we completely forget or put aside the gospel as if it's something that has nothing to do with here. And to where now we're at a point where we don't teach our kids the gospel. We don't train our kids in the ways of God. They don't know the Bible because we don't know the Bible. And so we're more concerned about a high school diploma or a college diploma than we are about our kids knowing the gospel, and it's the truth. So let's back up and look at what God requires of us. Okay? All right, so anyhow, y'all have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.